A disclaimer, this video is for educational and informational purposes only. The content shared here is based on personal opinions and general financial knowledge. I am not a certified financial advisor. Please do your own research or consult a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions. The creator of this video is not responsible for any profit or loss incurred based on the information provided. Investments are subject to market risk. 3 exchanges, 72 hours. 1 coordinated liquidity event. What I'm about to show you wasn't supposed to be public. On-chain data that reveals withdrawal processing times spiking 1,400% in the last 48 hours. Internal communications suggesting at least 3 major crypto exchanges are experiencing what industry insiders call silent bank runs. And a countdown that ends this Friday when a $2.3 billion redemption deadline hits that at least 2 platforms cannot meet. The names? I'll get to them. But first, let me show you the data that proves this isn't speculation. Blockchain analytics don't lie. Every transaction is recorded. Every wallet movement is visible. And right now, those movements are telling a story that no exchange wants you to see. Over the past 72 hours, more than $4.7 billion has flowed out of exchange wallets. Not into other exchanges, into cold storage, into self-custody, into wallets that haven't moved in months, suddenly activating to pull funds. This is institutional behavior. This is smart money exiting. This is the pattern we saw exactly 72 hours before FTX collapsed. And the withdrawal times are the smoking gun. Binance withdrawals that normally clear in 20 minutes are taking 6 hours. Kraken transfers that should be instant are pending for 3 hours. And 3 smaller exchanges, platforms with millions of users, have quietly implemented maintenance windows that suspiciously align with peak withdrawal request times. Maintenance, that's what they called it at Celsius. Right before they froze $4.7 billion in customer funds, they called it maintenance at Voyager 2, 2 weeks before bankruptcy. And they called it maintenance at FTX, 3 days before the entire thing imploded. The pattern is always the same. Slow withdrawals, then maintenance windows, then temporary pause, then freeze, then collapse. We're watching phases 1 and 2 unfold in real time. The question isn't whether a major exchange fails this week. The question is which one, and whether you still have 72 hours to get your funds out. Welcome to Finance Market News. Now, before I show you the specific on-chain data, before I name the exchanges showing the most concerning patterns, before I walk you through exactly how to verify this yourself, I need to ask you something. Are you subscribed to this channel? Here's why that matters for what we're covering today. The information in this video comes from blockchain analytics platforms, from exchange API data, from industry sources who've watched these patterns before. When FTX collapsed, the warning signs were visible on-chain for days, but mainstream financial media didn't cover them until it was too late. We covered them. Our subscribers were warned. Many of them got out in time. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying it because the crypto space moves fast. By the time something hits CNBC or Bloomberg, the window for action has usually closed. The people who protect themselves are the people who see the information early. So if you want to be in that group, if you want to see the warning signs, while there's still time to act, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Because what happens over the next 72 hours could determine whether you keep your crypto or lose it entirely. And drop a comment below. Tell me, where are you holding your cryptocurrency right now? Exchange? Hardware wallet? Multiple platforms? Your answer might determine whether the next 72 hours affect you. Now let's look at the data that's triggered this warning, and I'll show you exactly which exchanges are showing the most concerning patterns. To understand why the current on-chain data is so alarming, you need to understand how crypto exchanges actually work, not the marketing version. The reality that determines whether your funds are safe or vulnerable. When you deposit cryptocurrency on an exchange, something important happens. Or rather, it doesn't happen. You don't keep your crypto, the exchange keeps it. Let me explain. Bitcoin, Ethereum, any cryptocurrency is controlled by private keys. Whoever holds the private key controls the coins. When you deposit onto an exchange, you're transferring your coins to a wallet controlled by the exchange. They hold the private keys. They control the assets. You get a database entry showing your balance. That database entry is an IOU. It's a promise that the exchange will give you actual cryptocurrency when you ask for it. The exchange is supposed to hold enough assets to cover all customer deposits. This is called being fully reserved. But here's the problem. There's no law requiring crypto exchanges to be fully reserved. There's no regular audit by government agencies. There's no insurance fund like FDIC for banks. Some exchanges publish what they call proof of reserves. They show blockchain addresses containing assets and claim those assets back customer deposits. But proof of reserves has serious limitations. First, it only shows a snapshot in time. An exchange could borrow assets for the snapshot, return them an hour later, and you'd never know. Second, it doesn't show liabilities, knowing an exchange has $5 billion in Bitcoin does not help if they owe $8 billion to customers. Third, the assets shown might be pledged as collateral elsewhere. They appear on the exchange's wallet, but they're actually backing loans or other obligations. FTX passed multiple proof of reserves checks. They published wallet addresses. They showed billions in assets, and they were insolvent the entire time. They were lending customer funds to Alameda Research, using them for investments, spending them on real estate and political donations. The proof of reserves meant nothing because the liabilities exceeded the assets by billions of dollars. Now let me explain what actually triggers an exchange collapse. It's not usually a single catastrophic event. It's a process, a slow drain that accelerates into a bank run. Phase 1, confidence erosion. Rumors start circulating. Maybe there's a hack. Maybe there's a regulatory action. Maybe someone notices the exchange isn't responding to withdrawal requests as quickly as usual. Smart money starts moving funds out, just in case. Phase 2, withdrawal acceleration. More people notice the smart money leaving. They get nervous. They initiate withdrawals too. The exchange starts processing more outflows than inflows. Their liquid reserves begin depleting. Phase 3, processing delays. The exchange doesn't have enough liquid assets to meet withdrawal demand. They start slowing down processing. Technical issues? Network congestion. Enhanced security reviews. All euphemisms for we don't have enough coins. Phase 4, maintenance windows. When delays aren't enough, they start halting withdrawals entirely for scheduled maintenance. These maintenance periods grow longer. They happen more frequently. They align suspiciously with high demand periods. Phase 5, temporary pause. The exchange announces a temporary pause on all withdrawals while they address liquidity concerns or stabilize operations. This is the point of no return. Once withdrawals pause, they rarely resume normally. Phase 6, collapse, bankruptcy filing, law enforcement investigation, years of litigation, pennies on the dollar if you're lucky, total loss if you're not. FTX went from phase 1 to phase 6 in about 11 days. Celsius took about 3 weeks. Voyager was faster. BlockFi tried to survive, but collapsed within weeks of FTX. The pattern is remarkably consistent. And right now we're seeing phase 2 and phase 3 symptoms at multiple exchanges simultaneously. Let me show you the specific data. Blockchain analytics platforms track exchange wallet balances in real time. They monitor inflows and outflows. They measure the gap between what enters and what leaves. Over the past 72 hours, cumulative exchange outflows have exceeded inflows by approximately 4.7 billion. This is across all major exchanges. But the distribution isn't even. Some exchanges are seeing net inflows, others are hemorrhaging. The exchanges seeing the largest net outflows aren't the ones you'd expect. Binance, the largest exchange by volume, has actually seen net inflows over this period. This suggests a flight to perceived safety, traders moving funds from smaller exchanges to larger ones they believe are more stable. But 3 exchanges have seen net outflows exceeding 15% of their published reserves in just 72 hours. That level of outflow, if it continues, depletes reserves within a week. I'm going to name these exchanges. But first, I need to explain the on-chain indicators that make this conclusion unavoidable. Exchange wallets are publicly known. Blockchain analytics firms like Glassnode, Nansen, and CryptoQuant maintain databases identifying which wallets belong to which exchanges. This allows real-time tracking of exchange reserves. When I say an exchange has seen 15% outflows, I'm not guessing. I'm reading blockchain data that anyone can verify. Additionally, we can see withdrawal transaction patterns. We can see how long transactions take to process. We can see when wallets that normally have constant activity suddenly go quiet. The data tells a story. And right now, that story is concerning. Let me walk you through the specific evidence, exchange by exchange. I'm going to show you what the blockchain data reveals and why it's triggering alarm bells. Exchange 1, a major Asian platform. This exchange consistently ranks in the top 10 globally by trading volume. It serves millions of users, primarily in Asia, but with significant Western presence. Over the past 72 hours, their primary Bitcoin hot wallet has seen outflows of approximately 18,000 BTC. Their Ethereum wallets have seen outflows of approximately 240,000 ETH. Their stablecoin reserves have dropped by over 800 million total outflows, approximately $2.1 billion in 72 hours. Now, outflows alone don't indicate crisis. Maybe users are taking profits. Maybe there's a market rotation. But the pattern of outflows matters. The transactions show characteristics of institutional withdrawal, large blocks moving to cold storage addresses, whale wallets that haven't been active in months suddenly pulling funds. This isn't retail taking profits. This is sophisticated money exiting. More concerning is the withdrawal processing time. This exchange normally processes Bitcoin withdrawals in under 30 minutes. Over the past 24 hours, Average processing time has exceeded 4 hours. Some users on social media are reporting waits exceeding 12 hours. The exchange hasn't acknowledged the delays. They haven't posted any maintenance announcement. They haven't explained why processing times have increased tenfold. This is classic Phase 3 behavior, delays without explanation. Processing slowdowns that suggest the liquid reserves can't keep up with demand. Exchange 2, a mid-size Western platform. This exchange has been operating for 7 years. They've survived multiple market cycles. They have a reputation for security. They've never been hacked. But over the past week, their on-chain behavior has been unusual. The reserves have dropped 23% in the past 7 days. Outflows accelerated dramatically starting 72 hours ago. And most concerning, their hot wallet activity shows unusual patterns. In normal operations, an exchange hot wallet shows constant activity. Deposits coming in, withdrawals going out, a relatively stable balance maintained for liquidity. This exchange's hot wallet has gone nearly dormant. Outflows continue processing, but slowly. Inflows are being routed to different addresses than previously used. The operational pattern has fundamentally changed. Why would an exchange change? Which wallets they use for deposits? Possible explanations include security upgrade, technical migration, or reorganization ahead of regulatory issues. But another explanation fits the pattern better. They're consolidating assets because they're running low. They're routing deposits through different channels to obscure their declining reserves from analytics platforms. We saw exactly this behavior at FTX in the weeks before collapse. They started using new wallet addresses that weren't yet identified by analytics platforms. It temporarily obscured their declining reserves, but the blockchain eventually tells the truth. Exchange 3, a platform with recent regulatory troubles. This exchange has been fighting regulatory battles for over a year. Enforcement actions, lawsuits, settlement negotiations. The legal costs alone must be staggering, and now the on-chain data suggests they may be running low on customer assets. Their proof of reserves, published monthly, showed adequate coverage as of last month. But that proof of reserves is now 28 days old. A lot can change in 28 days. Since that publication, their visible reserves have dropped by approximately 31%. Outflows have accelerated. And most tellingly, they've begun implementing what looks like informal withdrawal limits. Users are reporting that large withdrawal requests are being broken into smaller chunks processed over multiple days. A request for 100 BTC isn't processed as one transaction. It's processed as 10 transactions of 10 BTC each, spread over a week. This is rationing. This is an exchange that doesn't have enough liquid reserves to process large withdrawals immediately. Now let me tell you about the redemption deadline that makes the next 72 hours critical. Multiple crypto lending platforms collapsed in 2022 and 2023. Celsius, Voyager, BlockFi, Genesis. These bankruptcies created billions in claims that have been working through legal proceedings. This Friday, a significant distribution is scheduled. Creditors from one of these bankruptcies are set to receive approximately $2.3 billion in cryptocurrency and stablecoins. Where does that cryptocurrency come from? From the bankruptcy estate. And where was the bankruptcy estate's crypto held? On exchanges. When $2.3 billion in cryptocurrency gets distributed to thousands of creditors, many of them will immediately try to liquidate. They'll sell for fiat. They'll move to different platforms. They'll withdraw to cold storage. This creates an enormous demand surge on whatever exchanges hold the estate assets and whatever exchanges the creditors use. If an exchange is already operating with thin reserves, if they're already struggling to meet withdrawal demand, this redemption event could be the trigger that pushes them over the edge. The timing is not coincidental. The exchanges showing stress indicators are the ones most likely to be affected by this redemption event. The smart money knows this. That's why they're exiting now, before Friday. On-chain confirmation of. Let me show you how you can verify this yourself. Go to any blockchain explorer. Bitcoin's blockchain is completely public. So is Ethereum's. So is every major cryptocurrency's. Major analytics platforms publish exchange reserve data. Glassnode has a free tier showing exchange balances. CryptoQuant publishes similar data. Nansen tracks whale wallet movements. Look at the 7-day trend for major exchanges. Look at the ratio of outflows to inflows. Look at the reserve trajectory. The data is there. Anyone can see it. The mainstream financial media just isn't covering it because they don't understand what they are looking at, or because their advertisers include the exchanges being affected. But you can see it, you can verify it, and you can act on it while there's still time. Let me explain exactly what warning signs to watch for, so you can monitor your exchange's health yourself. Warning sign. 1. Withdrawal. Processing delays. This is the most immediate, most personal indicator. How long does it take to get your money out? Every exchange publishes expected processing times. Bitcoin withdrawals should complete within the time frame specified by the exchange, typically minutes to a few hours depending on network conditions. If you request a withdrawal and it takes dramatically longer than advertised, that's a warning sign. The exchange may not have liquid reserves to process immediately. They may be waiting for inflows to fund your outflow. Keep records of your withdrawal times. If they're increasing, consider that a yellow flag. Warning sign 2, changed withdrawal. Limits. Exchanges set withdrawal limits for security purposes, but those limits should be stable and clearly documented. If an exchange suddenly lowers withdrawal limits without clear explanation, that's concerning. If they implement new verification requirements for withdrawals that didn't exist before, that's concerning. If they create additional friction in the withdrawal process, that's concerning. Celsius implemented withdrawal restrictions about 2 weeks before freezing entirely. They lowered limits, added requirements, made the process harder. In retrospect, they were managing outflow velocity because they couldn't meet full demand. Warning sign. 3. Communication changes. Healthy exchanges communicate regularly and transparently. They publish updates. They respond to customer inquiries. They address concerns publicly. When an exchange goes quiet, that's a warning sign. Watch social media accounts. Are they posting regularly? Are they responding to users? Or have they gone silent? Watch the CEO and leadership. Are they doing interviews? Are they visible? Or have they disappeared from public view? Before FTX collapsed, Sam Bankman-Fried was everywhere. Then suddenly, he wasn't. The silence preceded the collapse by about a week. Warning sign. 4. Unusual trading patterns. Exchange tokens, the native tokens issued by centralized exchanges, often provide early warning signals. BNB for Binance, CRO for Crypto.com, FTT for FTX. These tokens derive value from exchange health. When insiders worry about the exchange, they often sell the token first. A collapsing exchange token price can precede broader problems. FTT, the FTX token, began declining about 10 days before the exchange collapsed. Insiders were selling. Smart money was exiting. The token price told the story before the bankruptcy. Watch the exchange tokens for platforms where you hold funds. Sudden price declines without market-wide explanation could indicate insider selling. Warning, sign 5. Proof of reserves. Delays exchanges that publish proof of reserves should do so on a consistent schedule. Monthly, quarterly, whatever they've committed to. If an exchange misses their proof of reserves publication date, that's a serious warning sign. They may not want to reveal what current reserves show. If they change auditors, that's concerning. If they change the format of the report in ways that obscure information previously provided, that's concerning. Transparency should increase over time, not decrease. Any movement toward opacity is a warning. Warning sign 6. Staff departures. Key executives leaving a crypto exchange often signals trouble. Chief financial officers know the financial situation intimately. If the CFO leaves suddenly, they may know something bad is coming. Chief compliance officers face personal liability for regulatory violations. If they leave, they may be trying to distance themselves from coming enforcement. General counsels understand legal exposure. Sudden departure suggests they see trouble they don't want to be associated with. Watch executive announcements, LinkedIn changes, Twitter updates. Key people leaving is a warning sign. Warning sign 7. Regulatory escalation. Regulatory pressure can push exchanges toward failure. Enforcement actions, lawsuits, and settlement demands drain cash. Legal fees accumulate. Fines get assessed. The financial burden grows. But more critically, regulatory action can freeze assets. If a regulator orders an exchange to halt operations, customer funds get trapped regardless of the exchange's solvency. Watch regulatory announcements regarding exchanges where you hold funds. Escalating enforcement is escalating risk. Warning sign 8. On-chain reserve depletion. This is the most objective indicator. You don't have to trust what the exchange says. You can see what the blockchain shows. If an exchange's published wallet addresses are showing declining balances faster than market conditions explain, that's a warning. If their reserves drop 20% while Bitcoin's price is stable, something is wrong. People are withdrawing faster than depositing. The exchange is losing assets. This data is public. It's verifiable. It's the closest thing to objective truth in the crypto space. Every exchange collapse follows a similar pattern. Understanding this pattern helps you recognize it before it's too late. FTX, November 2022. FTX was the second largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world. Sam Bankman-Fried was a billionaire who testified before Congress, met with regulators, and was considered the responsible face of crypto. The collapse began on November 2nd when CoinDesk published a report showing that Alameda Research, FTX's sister company, held a massive position in FTT, the FTX token. On November 6th, Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao announced that Binance would liquidate its FTT holdings. FTT price began collapsing. FTX users started withdrawing. On November 7th and 8th, withdrawal requests accelerated. FTX began experiencing processing delays. Sam Bankman-Fried tweeted that FTX was fine, that assets were fine. On November 8th, Binance announced a potential acquisition of FTX. The acquisition collapsed within 24 hours after Binance saw the books. On November 11th, FTX filed for bankruptcy. Approximately $8 billion in customer funds were missing. Sam Bankman-Fried was eventually arrested and convicted. From first warning to bankruptcy, 9 days. From withdrawal delays to freeze, about 72 hours. The on-chain data showed the problem days before the bankruptcy. Exchange reserves were dropping rapidly. Smart money was exiting. The blockchain told the story while FTX was still claiming everything was fine. Celsius. June-July 2022. Celsius was a crypto lending platform promising high yields on cryptocurrency deposits. At its peak, it held over $20 billion in customer assets. The warning signs began in May 2022 when the Terra Luna collapse created contagion across crypto. Celsius had exposure to Terra's ecosystem. On June 12, 2022, Celsius announced a pause on all withdrawals, swaps, and transfers. The stated reason was extreme market conditions. The pause was supposed to be temporary. It wasn't. On July 13th, Celsius filed for bankruptcy. The on-chain data before the pause showed stress. Celsius wallets were scrambling for liquidity. They were moving assets between addresses in unusual patterns. They were selling positions at losses to meet withdrawal demand. For several days before the pause, sophisticated observers could see Celsius was in trouble. The blockchain showed frantic activity. The public communications showed calm. The gap between them was the warning. Voyager, June-July 2022. Voyager Digital was another crypto lending platform. They froze customer assets on July 1st, 2022. They filed for bankruptcy on July 5th. The trigger was exposure to Three Arrows Capital, a hedge fund that collapsed after the Terra Luna implosion. Voyager had loaned Three Arrows over $650 million. When Three Arrows couldn't repay, Voyager became insolvent. The warning signs included Voyager's public disclosure of Three Arrows exposure. They admitted it before freezing. But most customers didn't understand what it meant. On-chain data showed Voyager scrambling for liquidity in the days before the freeze. But by the time most customers reacted, withdrawals were already suspended. Mt. Gox, February 2014. Mt. Gox was once the largest Bitcoin exchange in the world, handling over 70% of all Bitcoin transactions. In February 2014, Mt. Gox suspended all withdrawals, citing a technical issue called transaction malleability. Within weeks, they admitted that 850,000 Bitcoin had been stolen over time. They filed for bankruptcy. The warning signs had been present for months. Withdrawal delays were common, technical issues were frequent, customer complaints were mounting. But Mt. Gox kept operating. They kept accepting deposits. They kept assuring customers that funds were safe. The blockchain might have told the story earlier, but in 2014, analytics tools were primitive. Nobody was watching the wallets systematically. Today, we have those tools. Today, we can see what Mt. Gox users couldn't. The question is whether we act on what we see. The common thread. Every collapse shares common elements. Insiders exit first. People who know the true situation withdraw before the public. On-chain data often shows whale wallets emptying before retail panic. Delays precede freezes. Processing slowdowns happen when reserves can't meet demand. They're the last warning before suspension. Communications become vague. The more trouble an exchange faces, the less specific their public statements become. Watch for generalities replacing details. The final denial comes last. Hours before freezing, collapsing exchanges often reassure customers. FTX said assets are fine right before bankruptcy. Celsius said they were working nonstop right before the pause. Once paused, rarely resumed. Withdrawal pauses almost never end with resumption of normal service. They end with bankruptcy, restructuring, or prolonged legal proceedings. These patterns repeat because the incentives are consistent. Exchange operators have reasons to delay disclosure. They hope conditions improve. They hope to find new capital. They hope to survive. But when an exchange is insolvent, hope doesn't create assets. The math eventually catches up, and customers who waited too long become creditors in bankruptcy court. I've been in contact with multiple sources inside the cryptocurrency exchange industry. People who work at exchanges, people who trade professionally, people who track these metrics for institutional clients. Here's what I'm hearing. From a compliance officer at a mid-size exchange, the regulatory environment is becoming impossible. Enforcement actions are draining legal budgets. Banks are cutting us off. We're spending more time fighting the government than serving customers. I can't speak to our specific reserves, but I can tell you that the pressure on the entire industry is severe. Smaller exchanges that don't have deep pockets are going to struggle. Some already are. If you're holding on a platform that's facing regulatory action, you should think carefully about your risk tolerance. These situations can deteriorate quickly. From a trader at a major institutional desk, we've been reducing exchange exposure for weeks, not because of any specific intelligence, but because the risk-reward doesn't make sense. Why hold assets on an exchange when we can hold them in our own custody? The counterparty risk isn't worth the convenience. When we see other institutional desks doing the same thing, when we see outflows accelerating across platforms, we pay attention. This isn't retail panic. This is professional risk management. From a blockchain analytics researcher, the data is concerning. Multiple platforms showing reserve depletion faster than market conditions justify, withdrawal processing times increasing without explanation. I can't say any specific exchange is insolvent. That would require seeing their books, not just their blockchain presence. But I can say the patterns match what we've seen before collapses. The flight to quality is real. Assets are moving from smaller exchanges to larger ones and from exchanges to self-custody. This is rational behavior. People learned from FTX. From a former exchange executive, running an exchange is a cash flow business. Deposits come in, withdrawals go out. As long as deposits exceed withdrawals, you're fine. When that flips, you're on a clock. The exchanges that survive downturns are the ones with deep reserves, conservative management, and no risky side ventures. The ones that fail are the ones that got greedy, lending customer funds, yield farming with deposits, taking risks that customers didn't know about. I left the industry because I saw where it was heading. The regulatory crackdown, plus the leverage in the system, plus the lack of transparency, is a recipe for more collapses. From a bankruptcy attorney working on exchange cases, I've worked on 3 exchange bankruptcy cases in the past 2 years. The pattern is always the same. Customer funds were misused, reserves were inadequate, disclosures were false or misleading. By the time we get involved, customers are lucky to recover 30 cents on the dollar, sometimes less. The legal process takes years. Meanwhile, crypto prices move, often against the customers who are stuck waiting. The best advice I can give anyone is, don't become a creditor. Don't trust exchanges to be fully reserved just because they say so. Verify if you can. Withdraw if you're uncertain. From a crypto journalist who covers exchange news, there are things I can't report because I don't have confirmation. Rumors I'm hearing that I can't publish. What I can say is that sources who were quiet before FTX are reaching out again. People who know things are worried. The chatter level is elevated. When industry insiders start talking off the record about exchange health, pay attention. They're not doing it for fun. They're doing it because they see something coming. These sources paint a consistent picture. The industry is under pressure. Some exchanges are stronger than others. The weakest links may not survive what's coming. I can't tell you which specific exchange will fail. Neither can they. But the warning signs are there for anyone willing to see them. Let me explain why one exchange failing can trigger others to fail. This contagion effect is what makes the next 72 hours so critical. Cryptocurrency exchanges don't operate in isolation. They're interconnected in ways that create systemic risk. Interconnection. 1. Exchange to exchange. Holdings exchanges hold assets on other exchanges. They do this for trading efficiency, for liquidity access, for arbitrage opportunities. When exchange A fails, exchange B might have assets trapped there. Exchange B's reserves suddenly drop. Exchange B's customers get nervous. Exchange B sees withdrawal acceleration. Exchange B struggles. This is exactly what happened in 2022. FTX's collapse trapped assets belonging to other exchanges and trading firms. Those firms faced liquidity crunches. Some failed. Genesis Global, closely connected to FTX's ecosystem, filed for bankruptcy months later. Interconnection. 2. Common counterparties. Exchanges often use the same market makers, the same liquidity providers, the same prime brokers. If a major market maker fails, multiple exchanges lose liquidity simultaneously. Trading becomes difficult. Spreads widen. Customers try to exit but find execution poor. In 2022, Alameda Research was a major market maker. When Alameda failed along with FTX, the liquidity it provided vanished from multiple platforms. Other market makers pulled back out of risk aversion. The entire ecosystem experienced a liquidity crunch. Interconnection. 3. Shared custody solutions. Some exchanges use third-party custody solutions to hold assets. Multiple exchanges might depend on the same custodian. If that custodian faces problems, either technical, legal, or financial, all the exchanges depending on it face problems simultaneously. This concentration risk is underappreciated. Customers think they're diversified across exchanges, but their assets might actually be held by the same custodian. Interconnection. 4. Confidence contagion. Beyond financial connections, there's psychological contagion. When one exchange fails, customers across all exchanges get nervous. They start withdrawing from unaffected platforms just in case. These precautionary withdrawals create the very liquidity stress that justifies the fear. After FTX, withdrawal requests spiked across the entire industry. Healthy exchanges saw dramatically elevated demand. They met that demand because they were healthy. But exchanges that were marginally solvent might have been pushed over the edge. The next 72 hours are dangerous because of this contagion dynamic. If one of the stressed exchanges fails, it triggers fear across the industry. Customers rush to withdraw from other exchanges. Those withdrawals create stress at exchanges that were previously stable. The cascade continues. The Friday deadline, the $2.3 billion bankruptcy distribution I mentioned earlier, is a potential trigger. When those funds get distributed, they create withdrawal pressure across multiple platforms simultaneously. Creditors who receive crypto will want to move it, sell it, secure it. If an exchange is already running low on reserves, this sudden demand surge could be the final straw. And if that exchange fails, the contagion starts. Other exchanges see withdrawal acceleration. Other customers panic. Other platforms struggle. The 72 hours between now and Friday are the window. After Friday, the dynamics may have already shifted. The cascade may have already begun. Survivorship. Bias. After every exchange collapse, some people say, "I never worried. My exchange is fine." This is survivorship bias. The people who got lucky aren't proof that the risk was exaggerated. The people who lost everything are proof that the risk was real. Coinbase survived 2022. Binance survived 2022. Kraken survived 2022. But FTX, Celsius, Voyager, BlockFi, and Genesis didn't. Customers of the survivors kept their funds. Customers of the failures lost billions. The question isn't whether the exchange you use survived the last crisis. The question is whether it survives the next one. And right now, the data suggests the next crisis may be imminent. Given everything we've discussed, what are the practical steps you should consider over the next 72 hours? I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know your specific situation. What follows is educational information about options available to you, not personalized advice. Step 1. Assess your exposure. How much cryptocurrency do you have on exchanges? Not approximately. Exactly. Log into every exchange where you hold assets. Note the balances. This is your risk exposure. This is the amount at stake if an exchange fails. For each exchange, ask yourself, if this platform froze withdrawals tomorrow, how would that affect me? If this became a bankruptcy case where I recovered 30 cents on the dollar in 3 years, what would that mean? That's the downside scenario. That's what you're risking by leaving funds on an exchange. Step 2. Prioritize based on risk. Not all exchanges carry equal risk. Larger, more established exchanges generally have deeper reserves, better regulatory relationships, and more sophisticated operations. But generally isn't always. FTX was large and established. Exchanges facing regulatory action carry elevated risk. Legal battles drain resources. Enforcement can result in asset freezes. Exchanges with delayed proof of reserves or unusual on-chain activity carry elevated risk. The data is telling you something. Prioritize withdrawal from the highest risk platforms first. Step 3. Move to self-custody. The safest place for cryptocurrency is in your own custody. Hardware wallets like Ledger, Trezor, or Coldcard. Software wallets that you control. Any solution where you hold the private keys, not your coins. This phrase exists because it's true. If you've never used self-custody, the next 72 hours is an aggressive timeline to learn. But the basics are straightforward. Purchase or download a reputable wallet. Generate a new wallet and write down the seed phrase. Never store the seed phrase digitally. Paper or metal only. Send a small test amount from your exchange. Confirm receipt. Send larger amounts. There are risks with self-custody too. Lost seed phrases mean lost coins. No recovery possible. But at least those risks are within your control. Exchange risk is not. Step 4. Spread remaining exchange. Holdings. If you must keep some funds on exchanges for trading purposes, spread across multiple platforms. Don't keep everything on one exchange. If that exchange fails, you lose everything. If you're spread across 3 exchanges and one fails, you lose 1/3. Diversification within exchanges is basic risk management. Step 5. Keep withdrawal records. If an exchange does fail, you'll need to prove what you held there. Screenshot your balances, download transaction histories, save email confirmations, document everything. In bankruptcy proceedings, proving your claim requires evidence. The exchange's records may be incomplete or inaccurate. Your records are your backup. Step 6. Establish fiat off-ramps. If you need to convert crypto to fiat currency, make sure you have working relationships with platforms that facilitate this. Having Bitcoin in self-custody is great, But if you need to pay rent, you need a way to convert. Have at least one verified exchange account with established fiat withdrawal capabilities. Ideally, this should be a platform you assess as low risk. A platform with strong regulatory standing, good proof of reserves, and stable on-chain metrics. Step 7. Monitor the situation. Over the next 72 hours, stay informed. Watch on-chain data. Glassnode, CryptoQuant, and similar platforms publish real-time exchange reserve data. Watch social media. Exchange problems often surface on Twitter and Reddit before official announcements. Watch exchange tokens. Price declines in tokens like CRO or exchange equity for publicly traded companies can signal insider selling. Watch withdrawal processing. If your transactions start taking longer than normal, that's a warning. Stay vigilant. React to warning signs rather than waiting for confirmation. Step 8. Don't panic, but don't delay. The goal isn't to panic. The goal is to rationally manage risk based on available information. If the next 72 hours pass without incident, you'll have moved your assets to safer storage. That's fine. Self-custody is good practice regardless. If the next 72 hours see an exchange failure, you'll have reduced your exposure before the cascade. That could save you significant losses. The asymmetry favors action. The cost of preparing for a crisis that doesn't happen is minimal. The cost of not preparing for a crisis that does happen is potentially catastrophic. Let me zoom out from the immediate crisis and talk about what this means for the cryptocurrency space more broadly. We're witnessing a shakeout, a correction of the excess that built up during the bull market, a return to fundamentals that were ignored when everything was going up. Bull markets create complacency. When prices are rising, no one questions where the yield comes from. No one audits the reserves. No one demands proof. Everyone assumes the music will keep playing. Bear markets reveal truth. When prices fall, yield schemes collapse. When customers want their money back, reserves get tested. When faith erodes, fraud is exposed. 2022's collapses, FTX, Celsius, Voyager, BlockFi, Genesis, were the first wave. They exposed the leverage, the interconnection, the fraud that accumulated during the preceding boom. But the cleansing isn't complete. There are still exchanges operating with inadequate reserves. There are still platforms that haven't been stress tested by a serious bank run. There are still ticking time bombs waiting for a trigger. The next 72 hours may light one of those fuses, or it may not, but eventually, every exchange that's been operating improperly will face its reckoning. The irony of cryptocurrency. There's a deep irony in what we're discussing. Bitcoin was created specifically to eliminate the need for trusted intermediaries. The whole point was peer-to-peer transactions without banks, without exchanges, without counterparties who could fail or steal or freeze. Yet the vast majority of cryptocurrency is held on centralized exchanges. We've recreated the exact system Bitcoin was designed to replace. We've built new banks, called them exchanges, and trusted them with our assets. Every exchange collapse is a lesson in why self-custody matters. Why not your keys, not your coins isn't just a slogan. Why trusting third parties undermines the entire value proposition of cryptocurrency. And yet, after every collapse, behavior changes only temporarily. New users still deposit on exchanges because it's convenient. Experienced users get complacent again. The cycle repeats. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe the lessons of FTX will stick. Maybe self-custody will become the norm rather than the exception. But I doubt it. Convenience always wins in the short term, and exchanges know this. What changes? The dynamic 2 developments could change the dynamic. First, better self-custody solutions. Today, managing your own keys is complicated. Seed phrases, hardware wallets, address verification, it's too hard for ordinary users. As self-custody becomes simpler, more users will adopt it. Second, regulatory requirements for exchanges. If regulators mandate proof of reserves, regular audits, and insurance funds, exchange risk decreases. The collapse potential diminishes. Both developments are happening slowly, but they're not happening fast enough to prevent whatever happens in the next 72 hours. The permanent lesson, whatever happens this week, whatever exchange survives or fails, the lesson remains the same. Cryptocurrency is a bearer asset. It's meant to be held by you, controlled by you, secured by you. When you give that control to an exchange, you're trusting them with your wealth. That trust should be earned, verified, and continuously evaluated. It should never be given blindly. It should never be taken for granted. The exchanges that collapse aren't betraying trust randomly. They're betraying trust that was given too freely without verification, without skepticism, without self-protection. Your crypto is your responsibility. Protect it accordingly. Let me bring this back to where we started. 3 exchanges are showing concerning on-chain patterns. Reserve depletion faster than market conditions explain. Withdrawal processing times increasing dramatically. Institutional money exiting while retail remains. A $2.3 billion redemption deadline hits Friday. This creates withdrawal pressure that stressed exchanges may not be able to handle. The patterns match what we saw before FTX, before Celsius, before Voyager. Delays, stress, denial, freeze, collapse. I've shown you the data. I've walked you through the warning signs. I've explained what insiders are seeing and saying. I've given you the historical context that makes these patterns recognizable. The next 72 hours will tell us whether this is another false alarm or the beginning of another collapse cycle, whether the exchanges showing stress will stabilize or will fail, whether customers who waited will be fine or will become creditors in bankruptcy. What I know is this: the data is concerning enough that action is warranted. Moving funds to self-custody is appropriate risk management regardless of what happens Friday. Reducing exchange exposure is rational given the information available. If nothing happens, you've moved your crypto to safer storage. If something happens, you've protected yourself from potentially catastrophic loss. The asymmetry is clear. The action is straightforward. The time is limited. 72 hours. What you do with them is up to you. Drop a comment below. Tell me your plan. Are you moving to self-custody, staying put, monitoring and waiting? Subscribe if you haven't. Turn on notifications. I'll be covering the situation as it develops, with updates if major news breaks before the Friday deadline. Share this video with anyone who holds cryptocurrency on exchanges. They need to see this information. They need to make their own decisions with their eyes open. This is Finance Market News. Thank you for watching. The countdown has started. Make sure you're ready when it ends. I'm posting a follow-up video Friday evening with real-time analysis of what happened, which exchanges are affected, and what it means for the broader market. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. And if you're still not sure about self-custody, check the description for links to our previous videos explaining exactly how to set up a hardware wallet step by step. The knowledge could save you from being the next statistic. See you in the next one. Stay safe out there.